Hi everyone, my name is Matt Haslam from the Pennsylvania Equality Project and Powered by Rainbow's TV show. Now, let me introduce you to an organization called the Delta Foundation out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in America. If you've never heard of them, believe me, you don't want to, and believe me, you're about to because of what they're about to do here. So, 25 years ago, they created their organization called the Delta Foundation, and it was set up to help LGBTQIA community in the Pittsburgh greater area. And Pittsburgh's quite a large city. It's the second largest city in Pennsylvania, but it was set up to help the LGBTQ community. And they had a location where they had different events and happenings to help the community. They had a pride event even in Pittsburgh where they had everyone just come out and celebrate their pride. And they had different artists over the years, big name artists come in like Troye Sivan a couple years ago to come in and actually perform at their Pride Festival, which was rather large. They had thousands of people joining them every year. Suddenly, in January of 2020, Mr. Gary Von Horn, who is a 40-year-old man out of Pittsburgh area, resigned from his office as the president of the board of directors. And then immediately what happened was Mr. Jim Shepard, who was on the board of directors at the time, stepped up to be the interim president. At the time, they were wording this as, quote, "The move allows new leadership to guide the foundation into the next decade," the statement said, which is kind of ironic for what was about to happen, because they all of a sudden went into massive debt as an organization. And in August of 2020, they disbanded completely. Now, disbanding as an organization like this means that your group ceases to exist. It also means that all of the trademarks, the copyrights that your group owns, the website, everything about your group is all of a sudden no more. Fast forward to 2021 in August and September of this year, where all of a sudden a new LLC corporation starts up. And keep in mind, most nonprofits in the world are actually LLCs or corporations behind them to protect their board members and themselves from lawsuits and so on and so forth. Now, this organization, with brand new people, brand new money and everything, decided they wanted to start up a brand new Pittsburgh Pride to sort of continue the tradition of having an LGBTQ pride event in Pittsburgh, but just do it a whole lot better with a whole lot better people. Now, keep in mind, it was rumored that the Delta Foundation, the old organization that was disbanded about a year ago, they were rumored to be very racist and transphobic at the time, which wasn't really that great for a human rights organization, which, I mean, that really wasn't a good image for the LGBTQ community. But fast forward to now, where this new LLC is starting to work on their Pride event, because they're hoping that in August and September of 2021, they're hoping by next year they can have a Pride event, new and improved, brand new people, brand new everything, up and running for June or July or August of next year in 2022. And so far it's sounding like they're going to have a great event in 2022 because it's really being organized well this time and a whole bunch of really nice people behind it. But all of a sudden, right now in September, they hit a legal roadblock, the first of its kind, where the trademark office of the United States government is saying that they can't use the name Pittsburgh Pride for some reason. Because as it turns out, right before they disbanded as the Delta Foundation, they all of a sudden trademarked the name Pittsburgh Pride with the United States Trademark and Patent Office, just so no one else can use it. So before we go deep into this rabbit hole that is this story, I want to explain one thing that's going to help with the rest of the storyline. So you cannot trademark a general term for something. For instance, if I wanted to, I could not trademark the word vehicle, because otherwise I can go to General Motors, Ford, Toyota, all these car companies and ask them, hey, every time you use the word vehicle in your advertising or whatever you do, you have to pay me tons and tons of money for royalties to do so. And that is not fair to anyone. That is why the Trademark and Patent Office of the United States government and most governments worldwide will not allow you to trademark something general like that. So that's really just key one, that this trademark should have never been granted by anyone in their right mind. But that's exactly what happened to the Delta Foundation. All of a sudden, this LLC starts up and wants to use the word Pittsburgh Pride in their advertising and calling their program Pittsburgh Pride. And Delta Foundation, who no longer exist, all of a sudden says to them, you have to pay us tons of money to do so in royalties. which is kind of weird because they don't exist anymore. And so the question becomes, where does that money and royalties go to if they were to pay the royalties? And the answer to that is actually their board of directors. See, when an organization disbands, their board of directors at that very moment are the ones that are always on the books for that organization. So if they were to get a donation in the form of royalties, all of the money would go personally to all of these people as board of director members, not as an organization, but in their personal bank accounts. So if this new LLC was to actually do things the legal way right now, what they would have to do is actually pay all of the board of directors at the time of disbanding of the Delta Foundation. All of a sudden they would get a windfall of money personally over the fact that they trademarked a name prior to disbanding for the sole purpose of this reason. So the good news here is that the LLC is handling this in a very professional and good way. They are filing a formal complaint through their lawyers to the Federal Trademark and Patent Office saying, hey, the Delta Foundation no longer exists anymore, so why do they even have trademarks or copyrights to their name, because they all cease to exist the day the organization does? And secondly, why did you even give a trademark to this organization for something of a general terminology here, which is something you should never do? Because you see, this organization of the Delta Foundation is just doing this for pure greed of personally trying to fill their pockets. But if they wanted to, they can easily take that money from whatever royalties they're paid and trademark every city around the world. You see, if this was allowed to happen, just like the vehicle example I mentioned before, all of a sudden you would have organizations filing trademarks for every city in America or beyond and saying, you can't use the word Philadelphia Pride without paying us royalties, even though we have nothing to do with that organization, because it only costs $225 for a trademark filing in the United States. So there's a lot of really rich organizations like Family Research Council, 1 Million Moms, and all of these very homophobic and transphobic organizations that could easily overnight file brand new trademarks in every city. And that way, they own all of the trademarks for all of our pride movements. And while that's a worst case scenario, that is what is at stake here. If the Delta Foundation, which again is a disbanded organization, wins this case with the federal authorities, then all of a sudden, any organization that wanted to could just file trademarks and own everything. And no longer would you be able to have any smaller pride start up, which means it's even more enticing for an homophobic organization that's really rich and brings in billions of dollars every year to buy up every city in America as a trademark, because that means no pride event could ever actually start ever again, and you would never have a first pride event anywhere in America. What's also very enticing and dangerous here is for existing pride events that already have some funding. They could easily say, you know what, we don't want competition next year, so we're going to buy up the trademarks for every town around us, and that way we're the only pride in the area this year and every year going forward. And that's not so far off from the truth sometimes, because while most pride events are very friendly and they welcome all of the pride events near them, there are a lot of pride events out there who also look at this as a competition and don't want anyone else to start up near them because they're getting federal funding or whatever program that they're having in donations. They don't want competition there. And the most dangerous part of it all is the fact that anyone out there owns the word pride currently, because keep in mind, the LGBTQ community is made up of hundreds of millions of people worldwide, so the fact that anyone gets to control that in any capacity is kind of dangerous no matter who that person is, especially a board of directors who's completely greedy in their own pockets, and they even failed to run their organization properly in the first place. So the question becomes, what do we actually do about all of this? And the answer to that is not so simple, believe it or not, because a typical trademark infringement case would go before a courtroom and before a judge or a jury of your peers, and they would be able to decide whether or not you actually broke the trademark of another company or an organization. Because typically in a trademark case, it's, hey, I have this logo and you have this logo, they're similar, and you copy and pasted certain items, and we're suing you for using parts of our logo and making a profit off of it. But that's not what this case is about. This case specifically is about whether or not that trademark should have been granted in the first place, and whether or not that trademark should have been disbanded at the same time the organization did back in August of 2020, which it absolutely should have. So this case will never actually make its way to a courtroom before a judge or a jury. It's never going to happen. What actually happens in a case like this is it goes to the federal authorities at the Trademark and Patent Office of the United States government, and they solely get to decide what the outcome is on this. Now keep in mind, if they decide that the Delta Foundation is in the right on this, well, that's kind of really messing up a lot of things and making it very dangerous for the LGBTQ community worldwide. But if they decide that this LLC is in the right and this trademark should have never existed in the first place, well then, it kind of saves everyone all at once. And I know at this point you probably want to help in this whole cause, so here are some ways you can do that. If you run an LGBTQ organization out there, anywhere in America, please consider signing on as a co-sponsor to that complaint to the federal government against the Delta Foundation. Please sign on and make sure that no one can own the word pride going forward. Secondly, if you are an individual out there, you can actually sign our petition at change.org and make sure that this never happens ever again, against this whole idea that someone can own pride and take it over. We're leaving all the contact information you need as an organization to sign on as a co-sponsor to that complaint, to the lawyer's office. And keep in mind that is just for organizations only. That is not for individuals. If you're an individual and you want to sign the change.org petition, that is also linked down below. So go check those out and get involved in making sure that something like this never happens ever again and no one can own pride, because it is a movement. It is a community. But now that we're here, it is very vital for you to get involved and for us all to band together to make sure that things like this cannot happen. And we're especially lucky for the fact that it's happening with an organization that's just pure greedy instead of for nefarious purposes trying to undermine our entire movement. But anyway, that is the news for this month. I am sorry to have to bring this and break this to you all, but the truth is, it is very important for us to get the message out and make sure it doesn't happen ever again, and make sure that the federal government knows how important this case actually is. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us. I am Professor Pride. Have a gay day, everyone, and bye for now.